सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रयविनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरतः चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः। तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि। धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सताम् वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदम् तापत्रयोन्मूलनम्। श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषुभिस्तक्षणात्।
All happenings in this world are the effects of an earlier cause. Nothing happens by an accident. Probably what we call as an accident in this world is that for which we do not know the cause. Hence, we call it an accident. In fact, it is an incident for which a cause can be known. It was not a mere accident that Jadabharata was abducted by a couple of dacoits for a human sacrifice. He escaped through it with the grace of divine and he was lying on the same place. He said, I don't have an agenda. Until I get an agenda, I will not move from here. So that was his conviction. Meanwhile, Rahuganas, one of the palanquin carriers, fell sick, so they wanted a substitute, proxy. And they found a Hatta-Katta proxy in Jadabharata. Imagine, how many things should have happened before Rahugana gets relief from his pains and sorrows and miseries and misconceptions to find Jadabharata at that spot. Not only that, he finds Jadabharata, he also kicks him. Probably in earlier life something must have happened wherein Raja Bharata must have given that deer something. So So it was paying it back. Everything is like a connection. We feel pretty lost not finding that connection. We keep trying to figure why does this have to happen? Why does this have to happen to me? Why? Believe in one thing first, that it is not a mere accident. If it is happening to you, there could not have been any other way that it would have happened. So for Rahugana to meet Jadabharata, Jadabharata had to be abducted. So the Kala was dancing on the heads of these dacoits to take them away. That's why they had to pick Jadabharata. Probably if it were somebody else, Bhadrakali would not have come rescuing them. But if Bhadrakali had come to rescue, Jadabharata said, as he said in earlier chapter, probably the Sharira has more prarabdha. I'll live to see what that prarabdha is. And as he was waiting for his prarabdha to take turn, a twist in his life, that Rahugana comes. Rahugana could have come and gone. The same place where Jadabharata was sitting, he must have been sitting, and Rahugana would have gone. But for their both samparka, for them to meet, one of the palanquin carrier who should have had a prarabdha to fall sick on that day. What a perfect match. Could not have been otherwise. And we keep struggling to fix into our own setup. Why does this have to happen with me? Whether you understand it or not, understand this much. What exactly are you saying? Whether you understand it or not, understand this much? What much? Whether you understand about the reasons of why you are what you are doing, how you are, is immaterial. One thing you should grasp, that whatever is happening is according to the prarabdha, and if you let it happen and watch it happen, guna guneshu vartante, iti matva na sajjate. So Rahugana got this opportunity. Was he ready for that opportunity? Probably not. But Jadabharata made him ready to give this knowledge to him. He made him get out of that to give this knowledge to him. If Rahugana would not have abused him, kicked him, and found that he was a Brahmana and then fall on his feet, probably Jadabharata would not have the opportunity, but that had to happen. And that Jadabharata, who did not speak for lifetime, who did not interact with anybody for a lifetime, who did not pay attention to anybody's words in his lifetime, nor his father, nor his brothers, nor his sister, nor his brother-in-law, nor his sister-in-laws, nobody could get to him. It was a long wind tunnel. Or rather, there was probably lead in his ears. He would not let anything get into him. How frustrating it would have been for all his brothers and parents and everybody. They are screaming at him and he is like looking at them with a smiling face. There is nothing more frustrating to a person who is getting angry to find a smiling face across. But he didn't speak a word, he didn't react, he didn't respond to anything. But that Supreme had to come through this Jadabharata to speak to Rahugana as a guru. And suddenly Rahugana gets this absolutely stunning message. And Rahugana says, can you come again? It was too big for me to understand. Can you say that again? Imagine, that Jadabharata who never spoke. And how Jada Rahugana must have been. That's what even he says. Jadabhartas, when he speaks to Rahugana, he says, you people say that you have gotten educated. Does your education promise you two things? Does your education promise you removal of your miseries and firm abidance in bliss? If it does not give, that is not education. Then Rahugana is confused. No, what is education then? Whatever you are saying, I don't grasp it. Whatever I think I have grasped, you say it is wrong. Now what is the actual education? I am lost. Can you say that again? Now with the request of Rahugana, who probably not even understands from the externality that he is a great master, but finds some kind of a solace, some kind of a direction to look up to. So he starts praising. You are Paramatma, Parabrahma, Paramananda Swarupaha. Namo Karana Vigrahaya Namo Namaha. You must have been born only to educate me, that is why you are here. Jadabharata also must have been smiling to himself. True. I never spoke so far. And if I am speaking for the first time in my life, probably I must have been born only to educate you. So if you ask for it, I'll say it again. See, when a Sishya approaches a master, that is how his or her approach should be towards the master. Gurudev used to always insist on it, that do not look at me as this physical form, physical framework. This physical framework has a certain age, a manufacturing date and an expiration date. After that, this physical frame would be gone. But what is coming through this physical frame is the Guru Tattva which is speaking. Na guror adhikam tattvam, na guror adhikam tapaha. It is that Tattva. And that should be the drishti, that should be the approach of the Sishya, that he looks at the Guru as none other than that supreme consciousness in a walking, talking module. So when somebody asks you who is a Guru, you can tell them. It is the supreme consciousness which is walking and talking. That is a Guru. Chalta firta jnanopadesh karne wala Guru hai. Chalta firta Paramatma. In fact, there was this great Mahatma called Chandrasekharendra Saraswati. His, I think, biography was called The Walking Saint. It is probably in a couple of languages. He was that supreme in a walking format, talking format. Within MPEG 4 and MP3 format. The supreme in this format is called Guru. And that is how even Rahugana approaches. Probably I don't understand what you are saying, but I approach to you as the supreme consciousness. So please enlighten me of what you are saying it again. Now Jadabharata, looking at him, he said, Are Baba, you are busy becoming a ruler, becoming a Swami, treating others as your sevakas, treating others as lower than you, treating yourself as higher than others, constantly trying to gauge, trying to control. Control on what? This earth that you are talking about? I have seen earlier many kings who have ruled on the same land, considering it as themselves, their own. Even today, when we buy land, sell land, though we sell the land, when we show it to the others, do we say that it is somebody else's land? No. What do we still say? It was my land. In this country there is this thing called 90-day study period and escrow, whatever it is called. कहते हैं ना ऐसे शब्द हैं उसमें. Even when it is in that period wherein you have not yet purchased that land, whenever you go across and your friends say, that land is mine. I am almost there buying it. It's mine. खरीदा नहीं कुछ नहीं, mine. So I have seen many people who have called the same land theirs. How did it become yours? Even if you call it as yours, somebody else will claim it as theirs. If that which was somebody else's has become yours, can become anybody else's, how can it be called yours? Anything that is such free flowing, try to restrain it, it is called death. For example, take a deep breath and say, that is my breath, and keep holding on to it. You survive because you let go. The same way with everything else. But with the breath, there is no association of kartrutva, bhoktrutva. No doership, no enjoyership. So you don't feel agitated when you breathe in, you don't feel painful when you breathe out. I have gained lot of breath. May seem very ridiculous, but think about it. It is something new that you have gotten in. And then when you are breathing out, I'm losing my breath. No, there is no kartrutva, there is no bhoktrutva. Similarly, whatever comes in life, whatever goes in life, if there is no kartrutva, no bhoktrutva, there is no pain, no misery associated. He says, everything is after all different shapes, different forms of mud. Everything comes out of mud, goes back into mud. That reminds me, Gurudev, I think it was Gurudev, while walking in the Bombay ashram, was looking at one tree. Or was it in Siddhavari ashram? Looking at one tree and showing it to the other disciples around him. That tree is laughing at me. And then the disciples were like, that tree laughing at you? And they laughed at Gurudev. What do you mean? That tree is saying that this bearded fellow, he is talking about himself, would be a good piece of manure for me if he dies. That is what we end up becoming. See, that is also a beautiful tradition wherein the body is burnt. Right? Normally in the Hindu tradition, we burn the body. I mean, dead body. FYI, to make it clear. And then what do we do with the chitta bhasma? With the ashes? We mix it in some perennial rivers, which has a constant flow. Not in a dead river, not in Dead Sea. In some river which has a perennial flow. Now this river which has a perennial flow, where does this water go into? This water goes into cultivation. And it is enriched with this carbon, pot full of carbon. And if you have done or if you have any kind of idea, the best form of manure is the ashes. So it is coming enriched with this carbon into the fields directly, becoming manure. So from manure, from mud, we are born to become again piece of mud. In between this coming and going, possessing, attaching, Are Rahugana, from that standpoint, what is exactly that you are calling yours has never been yours. It is just a feeling that it is yours. Is it not? It is just a feeling. Like in the stock market, right? It goes up. I am a millionaire. इंडिया में कहते थे हम करोड़पति हैं. And it crashes, कहाँ निकल गया? करोड़पति है. Because that which was, it was just a paper value. It was just a feel of it that I was a millionaire. Nice kick. What do you call that rush? Adrenaline rush. Ha, I am making a millionaire. But do you have it? No, it is in the stock. It is just a paper value on the papers. And suddenly the market crashes. What is missing is just a paper value. But the pain, misery is not that easy. High. Start beating their chest. And now suddenly he shifts gears. This Jadabharata shifts gears and he says, Vyavahara moolam nirupyatam sata kriyaya anumeyam. Now let us look at it from a different standpoint, he says. And what standpoint is he talking about? This is in the 8th, 9th shlokas. Here, let's talk from the Paramanu standpoint. You know, Rahugana is like, first itself I am not understanding. Suddenly you go to Paramanu standpoint. Subatomic particles. And what is the subatomic particle? He says, that which is niramsha, niravyava, asamyoga. This is the subatomic particle. That which cannot be fragmented any further is the subatomic particle, which doesn't have any parts, niramsha. Niravyava, it doesn't have any limbs. It is just a bundle of something. It doesn't have any further fragmentation in it. Niravyava. And since there are no limbs, cannot join with anything else. See, when we all stand in a circle, when does the circle complete itself? When this limb and the other limb is connected. Now when there are no limbs, how can there be connection? But still, all this world is filled up with these tiny particles. When two of such paramanus come together, it becomes anu, an atom, the smallest particle, that which can be perceived. And when such one simple particle comes together, what is nothing but fluff. This comes in the 9th shloka. Avidyaya manasa kalpitaste. This solidity of it is just imaginary, because when you look at it at that standpoint, there is nothing but fluff in it. Is it not true? When you look at the density of that particular atom, it's not even 1% of it, 99% of it just fluff. Fluff, nothingness. But these particles coming together gives this solid reality kind of world. Now if in the foundation itself it is fluff, how can it come together to become a solid world? From your physical standpoint also, it doesn't hold any standpoint. Rahugana is like jaw dropped. You mean that which I see, which I perceive is not there? Then why am I seeing it? He says, avidyaya manasa kalpitaha te. It is because of your imaginary projections, you assume that it is outside and then relate with it, depending on it, which gives it its reality. Satyatva buddhi. And he says, this knowledge of the Supreme, wherein, established in which, knowing that all these limitations exist not. Since they exist not, cannot limit you, you are the unlimited, is the knowledge. When will you find that firm abidance in that knowledge? In the 12th shloka he says, nor with tapasya, nor with yajna, nor with Veda Pata, Shastra Pata, Shastrartha, that you get this knowledge. You do not get this knowledge with anything else. Okay, let's take one by one. You do tapasya, penance. Penance meaning there are already existing experiences. To face them is called titiksha. Without reacting, accepting them completely, it is called titiksha. Endurance. Endurance with a smile. I think two cantos earlier, that song which I was telling you, that you are never fully dressed without a smile. So you have to face the experiences with a smile on your face, not a fake one. And whenever I talk of a fake smile, the first thing that comes into my mind is the air hostess. Welcome. How are you? Before you even react to them, hi, welcome. They're already to the second one. You're like, hey, I want to tell you how I am. Wait, listen to it. They're not interested. But it is good. Instead of a grumpy face there is at least smiling face. They paid for it to keep the market flowing in. So that they can fly with our market. Or our money, their market flies. Not a fake smile, but with a originality smile wherein you know that it is a passing phase. You just go through it. You brisk through it without getting affected by it. That is called titiksha. Tapasya is added along with the existing experiences. You create your own disciplined system wherein you put yourself in an extra stretch. Yes, it is uncomfortable. It is a discomfort that you have created around you, so that you can grow beyond the limitations, grow beyond the attachments of the body, mind and intellect. Meaning, added experiences facing itself is not tapasya. Because some people end up saying, Swamiji, you don't know, I live in the house with my husband, it is a tapasya. No, that is your titiksha. Added along with that is your tapasya. That is called penance. Now with the penance, what happens? With the penance, you purify your heart, you look into yourself, clearing out the vasanas. That is the only result of tapasya. Then what happens with the yajna, Veda Pata? Yes, you acquire lot of merits, lot of punya by doing them. Remember, anything that you acquire, see what happens if there is only input. I call that system as constipated. Right? It gets stagnating. After a certain level, it starts stinking. So if there is a merit, that merit will flow away. And that's the reality about it. All the punya that you can do has to go away. You cannot keep holding on to it. The best result of the punya is a good satsanga. It could be a good satsanga like what Lankini got from Hanumanji. You know that satsanga, right? When Lankini stopped Hanumanji, she calls him Shatha, crooked one, entering into Lanka like a thief. And she says, it is my duty to stop any thief who enters in to Lanka. Now, Hanumanji doesn't even care that she is a lady standing there stopping him. He immediately grows his size, gives her one and becomes small again. And she falls third down. He says, what was that for? He said, that is my satsanga to you. Satsanga can be very powerful, huh? Hanumanji showed a path. Don't think that in satsanga it is only butter and malai and fluff around to cushion you. No. It is a hammer on the ego, top. If the hammer doesn't work, we'll use a hydraulic press. No, hammer, it has a, what do you call that? It has a resonance back, it hits you back. Recoils, right, that's the word. It's a hydraulic press, just press the button and watch the fun. And that is what is the, the soft corners, wherein you just have to press the button. And then watch the fun. The satsanga is the best result of the punya, but it is not any to Paramatma Darshana. When can you get Paramatma Darshana? Vina Mahat Pada Rajobhishekam. In the 12th shloka, he says, without the Mahapurusha Samshraya, without the service for a great master in your life, it cannot be possible. Why does he insist so much on, did he have a guru? In his earlier life, when he was Bharata Rishi, Raja Bharata, he had taken initiation from the guru which had been so strong that which continued through 3 lives. So even earlier he was initiated. As Jada Bharata, he was born Mukta. And that state cannot be imitated. Wherein you don't care for anything. I don't care for the rules, I don't care for the regulations, I don't care for hygienity, I don't care for mana, apamana, labha, nashta, nothing. That cannot be imitated. Because then there is even little bit of ego. All these imitations, the ego cannot stand. Somewhere or the other it keeps bursting out. If there is a reactionary pattern, there is an ego there. Here for him, with no response to any external stimulus, was not a natak that he was putting on. It was genuine originality flowing out, wherein he just didn't bother, didn't care about anything else. Then what about all the regulations, disciplines of the entire world that it stands on? For that, his statement is, for those who have the vikara, go through the samskara. For those who have the modifications, go through samskara process. I do not have any kind of vikara, so I don't need samskara. See, if there is a scar, you need an ointment, right? So if there is a scar, you need samskar. I don't have any dents inside. I don't care for any repair. Samskara means a repair. And this is because of the seva that I had performed to the Guru, then that I am still having that firm knowledge. And here he very beautifully mentions it. Mahat pada rajo abhishekaha. Raja is the dust of the feet of the master. You know, there is this story wherein a master had couple of students. The master's name was Paramananda. And he had 10 students. These 10 students were called the Dasha Murkhaha. One was Murkha, the other one was Murkottama, the other one was Murkha Shiromani, Murkha Vidottama, Murkha Shikhari, the zenith among the fools, the apex, the topmost, top notch, the cream of foolishness. These were the names of his students. So one day he had come from a long distance and he was lying down. His students said, you seem to have walked from a long distance. Can we press your feet so that you will feel a little relaxed? So the 2 students he called and said, press the feet. And they started pressing the feet gently and he almost fell asleep. Almost. And as he fell asleep, till then he was lying flat, he turned to his side. So one leg fell on the other leg. He suddenly started seeing the disciples screaming at each other. Hey, take your leg away. It is falling on my leg. I warn you, move your leg away. Because it is disturbing me from my seva. Your leg should be away. My leg is not disturbing you. Why should your leg come and disturb my leg? And in a couple of minutes, this argument went into such a level that one fellow took a sickle in his hand, the other fellow took a stone, you know, that which you have the पीसते हैं ना, उसको क्या कहते हैं? The pestle, but it is a stone, bigger stone, this big. So that fellow picked another stone and said, if you don't, I'll put this stone on. And if you put the stone, I'll use the... So the Guru said, Arey Baba, chodo. This is neither your leg and this is neither yours. So it could lead to a different level. So here Jada Bharata very carefully is using the word, choicest words. He says, don't even go near the feet. Pada Raja Abhishekaha. It seems it happened to Guruji once. Tejo Maharaj. As he was stepping down from the lecture place, there was this lady who brought a chair and asked Guruji to sit. Just 2 minutes. And then she had this paper and put Guruji's leg on her and she started scraping with a spoon. The dust of the holy feet of a master. So she was taking off the dust. I tell you, people can be too literal. So it is neither that. When you go to a doctor with an ailment, when would the doctor be happy? Of course, when you pay his bill. The doctor also doesn't bother about the bill because the insurance is covered anyway. So if the doctor is a genuine one, because there are so many definitions of a doctor, One hilarious one that I came across was Vaidya Raja Namastubhyam Tvam hi Yama Sahodaraha. Vaidya Raja Namastubhyam Tvam hi Yama Sahodaraha Yamatu Pranan Harati Tvam Dhanani Cha. Vaidya Raja, oh doctor, you are really great because you are literally the brother of Lord of Death Yama. Rather, you are greater than Lord of Death Yama because he only takes life. You take life and their money. But he says, a genuine doctor. When will the patients going to a doctor reach a fulfillment? When you attained good health. Like there are this, traditionally if there is a doctor, father is a doctor, mother is a doctor, and they have two children. One becomes a lawyer, the other one becomes a doctor. Covering each other's business. So there was this family wherein the father was a doctor, his son also became a doctor, and all his clientele, he gave it up to his son. So, beta, I am retiring. So, I am going to this secluded place, I am going to enjoy in the ranch. And within 3 weeks, he gets a call from his son. Dad, you know what? This lady who used to come to you for almost 25 years, I don't know how you missed it. I cured her in 3 weeks. The dad said, Arey Bewakoof, if I had cured her in 3 weeks, who would have paid for your education? That is not a genuine doctor. When you go to a genuine doctor, with an ailment, when you get treated well and regain your health, swasthya, that is a fulfillment of having gone to a doctor. Similarly, when you come to a master, when is the fulfillment? By pressing their feet? Charana Rajadhuli, scraping out the dust of their feet. By cooking food for them, by ironing their clothes, by cleaning up their house. All could be considered as sadhana, but it is not end in all. When does it find fulfillment? That sthiti where the master himself is. You transcend your own limitations to bask in that glory. That is when it finds fulfillment. And why specifically with a master? There is a reason. There are, what do you call them, smart Alex? Swamiji. In fact, it was in one of the camps, a recent camp which was in Houston. I was just sitting in the back row. Normally we were made to sit in the front row. When you sit in the front row, it is too much of a focus there. Didn't really relish the talk. So one fine day I squeezed myself out of the front row, was sitting in the back. Just before Guruji entered the hall, there were these 3-4 ladies. Probably they did not know that their brahmachari was sitting behind them. And they were talking to each other. They were having their notes ready and pencils sharpened and getting ready, prepared. They युद्ध के लिए तैयारी करते हैं. They were also getting ready for the talk. So they were comparing notes. One of the ladies was writing down the main points that Guruji was hinting. The other 2 ladies were requesting this lady, when you are maintaining such fast notes, you can write, because she knew some kind of shorthand or something. So she was writing in that shorthand. See, all those pointers are somewhere there in the book. What you should write down are the jokes which are not there in the book. I was like amazed. Do you come for the jokes in a camp, in a lecture? Really dumb-witted. Who come for jokes in the lecture. Do you think the speaker is a joker or what? To give you a comedy, stand-up comedian or what? That you can write down the jokes. The purpose is lost there. So when you go to a master, observing every single point and trying to implement it, and if not implemented, the moment you become a Shishya, see, as long as you are a Bhakta, you are pampered by the master. Whatever you do is fine, they don't care. The moment you become a disciple, Shishya, who is ready to be disciplined, I tell you, they don't spare the rod. Anything that you do is wrong. Why? Because you did it. Man, Gurudev used to take us to such task. At one side, when the devotees come, he would be so loving, laughing, and suddenly he would turn to us. No smile. And even if there is a little bit of thing that was some recklessness that he finds, I tell you, I learned some personal things from Gurudev. I had once written a letter. I typed it out. And at the end, I had my name in the parenthesis, and I forgot to put the date after my sign. Response: idiot, where is the date? Absolutely no scope left. Nothing less than perfection was expected. I still treasure that. It's probably first time I have shared it with anybody too. I was shocked. In the letter there was no reply. Idiot, where is the date? Send me another letter. Oh man, he was awesome. When we messed up something huge, he would not scold. When you expect the worst, he would not utter a single word. Like as in Yuva Kendra, he had given us a particular date to organize the youth talk, one-day talk. We had advertised in almost every single college in that city, expecting around anywhere between 5,000 to 8,000 students. He didn't say a word because he reached that day. It was supposed to be that day evening, and next day morning he was leaving. His tickets were booked. Somehow we missed the dates and blocked that venue, advertised for that venue, that particular talk, the next day after he had left. Already said, mistakes happen. And he arranged some other things, he called up some other things and didn't finish his day and left. Only later we understood why he didn't scold us, because we had to apologize to almost 5,000-6,000 people standing there at the gates. Most awkward moment in life. Anybody could pick your collar up and trash you down. How dare you do such thing? It is a very disappointing thing. After he left from the place, he sent us another mail. Because he used to write very regularly. He sent another mail. For you all, a second chance. This is the date. In training a people, he gave long ropes. But when he expected perfection, and you were even like 1 centimeter away from the mark, he would whack you down. Like I still remember in Siddhabari, there was a big event to be organized. I think it was one of the Diksha ceremonies of the earlier batch. We were still in Yuva Kendra. And he said, clean up this Saraswati Nilaya. And the main satsang hall was called Saraswati Nilaya. That is where Saraswati's Nilaya abode is. And we left no corner, we thought. We cleaned up every single space, every single seat, every single asan, every single photograph. And as though he had an X-ray vision, he walks into the hall, straight goes to Taponji Maharaj's photograph, big life-size photograph, large one. And having gone there, does namaskar, turns around, looking at us, puts his hand behind the photograph, takes out the dust and shows us and walks out. It was like he knew exactly that we wouldn't have touched that spot. I said, you fools, you still missed it. Very rarely that the disciples ever got an appreciation from him. Because to be perfection is a very difficult task. I don't know how many times I got scolded when in his last years he used to just write, and there should have been somebody who could fold the letters, put them in the envelope and stick them properly and the stamp. How many times I must have gotten scolded for that? Is that the way you put the stamp? The upper side and the side should match. And folding the letter, arre baapre. Literally my hands would shiver doing a job in front of him. He spared no rods. Any small little opportunity, you just hit it, damn. And he would not look back in a glance of forgiveness even. Until you show that perfection. One person in life who can straighten us out. Wherein, who has the audacity to kick you where it hurts, when it should not hurt. Because that is where the ego is still attached, hanging on to. And one person whom we trust so much that we can take it. Because his effort is to perfect us. Yes, these books can have different, they are in English, they are in Sanskrit, they are in whichever language nowadays. You can read through them. Reading through them will not force you to reach to that stage of perfection. Because we'll fall back in our own eyes. And this master relentlessly keeps pushing the bar, extending the bar. You never get 10 out of 10. There is never a perfect score. And their standpoint is anywhere in between is as good as nothing. Either you are 0 or you are 10. Because even if there is little bit of margin left, you are still imperfect. And perfection cannot stand imperfection. So it is as good as having nothing. So there are no in-between shades. Either you are 0 or you are there. So one person should be there. That is what he means. Somebody in life who can keep correcting us, who can keep checking us. Continuing in the next chapter, Jadabharata says, no, I think in this chapter there is one more point to cover. How long does this master keep pushing the bar? Here he uses one beautiful word. He says, प्रस्तूयते gramya katha vidhataha. As long as the craving for gramya katha still exists, till then the master keeps whipping us. Now what is gramya katha? It is not folklore. Gramya katha does not mean folklore here. Some of the translations that I have read, very loosely done, they have stated it as a folklore. Grama here means indriya grama. That which stimulates the organs of perception and action, that is called indriya grama. And these indriyas are constantly reveling in those external stimulus. That is the gramya katha. Grama is the collection of things for the utility of something intelligent than that collection. So all the sense organs work for the mind. And they gather different information. See, gathering information because you can hear, you can see, you can smell is different. Gathering the information with the shades of likes and dislikes is what is being called Gramya Katha. That craving, as long as is not gone. See, if you have seen a blacksmith or a goldsmith working, what do they do with the piece of iron? First, the ore is heated up, and then the impurities are taken out. Just when the impurities are taken out, it is just a worthless piece of metal, heavy metal, worthless piece of heavy metal. It is reheated, drawn, pulled into a shape. And after having been pulled into the shape, what do they do for that? They heat it to such bright level wherein with the hammer stroke they keep hitting it to that shape and direction. Do you think it is done? Not yet. Then if it is some sharp instrument, they start chiseling it down to perfection and then shining it so that the metal's real worth comes out. Similarly, the master. How long he keeps correcting us? Till we reach to the stage of perfection that he has set a bar to, not what we have understood as the limit. Till then he keeps continuing this effort. And then, in the end of this 12th chapter, suddenly by force of the situation, this Jadabharata bursts out with his identity. Don't think that I have never been a king. I was Raja Bharata, on whose name this whole Bharatvarsha is kept. I am that one. Rahul is getting shock after shock. See, it so happened that there was this great, we understood his greatness only later. This happened in Pune. Just outside the railway station, when you go a couple of yards outside the railway station, there is a small masjid kind of a thing. Anywhere between that railway station and that masjid, there was this madcap who would always be busy burning one thing or the other. Plastic, juta, chappal, lakdi, kuch bhi. He would be just burning things. And people would throw coins at him. So he would go into a restaurant, throw the coins at them. And whatever they give, he would take and go and eat. He would not give them. He would go there, stand and throw it in their face. and one of them would come and give him food, and he would pick that food, go somewhere with dogs or somewhere, sit, eat, give it to the dogs, eat himself little. And it is said that people would eagerly wait for him to come and throw money in their shop, because next 1 week, 2 weeks, it will be a glorious business for them. So they would eagerly wait for him to come and throw money on their face. It was in the later part. So once it so happened, a couple of us had met him several times. So there was one particular, Pune is supposed to be a cultural hub, wherein a lot of literature, a lot of Vedanta Charcha is done. In one of the temples, there was this some kind of satsang going on. The Panditji would keep explaining certain things, and that particular day they were talking thing about Brahma Sutras. He would come sit, and people would think that there is a madcap sitting there, and he would not be looking at the speaker. He would be facing somewhere else, doing his own little things. And that particular day, there was this sentence which was not understood by the Panditji himself. And then in order to get through the thing, he explained it in his own terms. So suddenly he turned, he couldn't stand it no further. When he was giving a wrong meaning for that sentence, he couldn't stand it. He turned and said, "Arey Panditji, it should be this, and he explained. And the Panditji, the tears started flowing from his eyes that a madcap is revealing this kind of a subtlety, and he fell Shashtanga, pranam to him. And it is said after that, they didn't find that master again. The reason that Panditji said, that master it seems said, that now that I have spoken, my real identity is revealed, and I don't want to stay in such place. I want to live in incognito. After that, he was not seen in Pune at all. So probably in that kind of a weak moment wherein Rahugana was still doubting that you look like a madcap, what experience do you have to say all this? So he said, I am Raja Bharata. And it just came out of him. Then, now that Raja Bharata understood who he was and what kind of stories, he had become a legend by then. What kind of a legendary person that he was talking to. He now comes down to a little smaller level and then asks Jadabharata. But still, I think this world has its own satta, its own reality. He's still stuck on that, reality aspect. Then taking lot of compassion on Jadabharata, on Rahugana, Jadabharata starts saying, and there's a beautiful term that he uses in this 13th chapter. I really fell in love with that word. He calls it as Bhavatavi. See, we normally have heard of Bhavasagara, Bhavasamudra. Now he uses Bhavatavi. Bhava Atavi. Atavi meaning forest, a jungle. Bhava, this samsara of becoming, is like a jungle. Without having the real identity, we keep losing ourselves with different identities. And this is what even Lord said in the last message in Bhagavad Gita. Do you know what is the last message in Bhagavad Gita? That is Sanjaya's message. That is Sanjaya's Falashruti. What was the Lord's last message? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tva sarva papebhyaha mokshayishyami mashucha. Sarva dharman parityajya. In 3rd and 2nd chapter, he was the one who insisted that swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. Stick to your own dharma, stick to your own dharma. And suddenly in the 18th chapter, Lord seems to change his mind in saying that sarva dharman parityajya, give up all dharmas. See, each word, according to its usage, according to the situation, carries a different meaning. Here, dharma also means two different things. In the second and third chapter, when it is used in the perspective that it is kartavya karma, which is your dharma, which is your swadharma, which means the kartavya karma. But in the 18th chapter, when it is used, it means that these different becomings that we keep adapting to, as I keep interacting with different people, different things, different situations, I keep becoming different in relation to that. I want to become intelligent, I want to become smart, I want to become, in all these becomings. Each one of them is a modification of either the body, mind or intellect. I want to become like Arnold. A modification of the body. Instead of the muscles being on your thigh, when they shift to your arms, you become Arnold. I read somewhere that it is difficult for him to drink coffee because the muscle is so big that the hand doesn't reach his mouth. Good imagination, right? That is nothing but a modification of the body. Becoming, trying to become muscular, trying to become a very compassionate person. It has to flow naturally. You cannot imitate to become a compassionate person. All these good qualities, we try to become them. We try to imitate them. This art of becoming has to stop. We have become so many things in our life that it has become like a jungle. It's weeds all around. And we don't have our true identity. Sometimes I become that, sometimes I become this, sometimes I become that. I was talking to a group of people in Koppal, and I said, when you are related to your son, what do you become? I said, father. When you are related to your sister, what do you become? Brother. When you are related to your parents, what do you become? Son. When you are related to your wife, what do you become? They said, miserable. Then immediately, from the woman folk there, somebody spoke up. No, they are misery incarnate. That's why they give misery. They don't become miserable, they are misery incarnate. The lighter side apart. We keep becoming according to the situations. This becoming has to stop. You are not a human becoming, you are a human being. You have to be. Be that supreme self which you already are. As long as we are not established in that, we keep moving from one to the other without having a firm establishment inside. Rolling stones. Never having a groove, never having a grip. Never having a foundation. Always being fidgety. Always being jittery. That is called a bhavatavi. In this bhavatavi, in this huge forest, what are the animals that are scary? He said there are many dacoits in this jungle, which rob away all your dhana. And he says there are many lions, jackals and all these bhayankara animals. And the comparison that he gives, Dara, Apatya, Saga, like husband, wife, children, your relations, all these are like लोमड़ी के जैसे होते हैं, नोच नोच के खाते रहते हैं. Always bleeding you, sucking out of you.
Because each one of them is nothing but expecting rather than giving. When you are expecting, you are trying to pull from them, trying to draw from them. And there is one beautiful word that I like in Hindi, even in Sanskrit it is. In English it doesn't give that punch. It is called Paran Bhuk. Paran Bhuk, truly translated into English, that which sucks out of others, suckers. In English, the true translation of it would be suckers. Paran Bhuk, you suck out of, draw out of everybody. We are such parasite in our existence. Constantly expecting, constantly waiting for. The most hilarious moment was when this, it clicked then, when I saw this title of this movie. Kaho na pyar hai. It looks innocent, but as soon as I read, what clicked inside was, what a beggar. Please kaho na pyar hai. Please. वो प्यार दिया जाता है दिल खोल के, मांगा नहीं जाता. You give love. You don't expect, you're not a leech to keep drawing out of somebody. And as long as we keep expecting, we are nothing but lomdis. So says Raja Jadabharat. My disclaimer, he is saying it. Yathoranam vrikaha in the second shloka. And then he says, as the thing is, we never look at it. Because the jungle is so dense that in that shadows, we are not able to see the actual reality of the vastu. See, whenever they want to make a scary movie, it's normally around, these dark alleys, dark houses. See any, what do you call this, scary movies. They normally have this shadows, dense forest. Sometimes in Indian movies when they want to show a forest, they shoot it in daylight and put a blue tint. Because you can see those long shadows to create the dangerous places. Because in that darkness, you can't see what is in reality. It's all covered up with these weeds of our own ichha to become. Some places there is ashana, pipasa, and the kind of pains, miseries that one goes through. We are innovative. Jadavarta says, we are at least innovative in one thing. We find new and new and new methods to become miserable. We are constantly researching, doing our postdoc. We have done a doctorate. We are doing our postdoc on how to be essentially miserable. Because we aim for happiness and becoming miserable. Which is probably true. We aim for the stars and land on the moon, right? That's what they say. Aim high so that at least you land somewhere high enough. So we aim high for the happiness and we land on misery. And we are very consistent. Different kinds of things that we generate to make ourselves miserable. And Adi Shankaracharya ji says in one of his stotras, Kaupi navantah khalu bhagyavantaha. Who is the most happy one? The one who does not possess anything. Because the moment you possess, you have the fear of losing it. The moment you lose it, there is a pang, there is a separation, there is a misery that you go through. I love the standpoint of Ramana Maharshi. One of the dacoits comes there to loot him and said, Nikal sab bahar, give everything. He is like a nirasakta person. He says, I have only two things. One is hanging there on that thread and another one is on my waist. He had only two lion cloths. And I am also wearing it only for Loka Maryada. You like it, take it. I don't care. What fearlessness is that person who does not care about losing anything? Because he doesn't have anything. He is not attached to anything to lose anything. Nothing can scare such person. But we who are so much of misery, we keep inventing newer and newer wheels to make ourselves established in the already continuing miserable state. That is why when you look at Bhagavad Gita's message, right from the 11th shloka of 2nd chapter till the end in the 18th chapter, even the last message, the first message that he gives, Ma Shucha, thou shalt not grieve. Because you are Sachidananda Swarupa, how can you be miserable? If you are Bill Gates, how can you keep begging for pennies? विचित्र विडंबना है. If you are that Sachidananda, you should not be caring for these paltry things. They keep coming and going, who cares? And what is the last message? I just read the shloka. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vaja aham tva sarva papebhyaha mokshayishyami ma shucha. Lord has one direct message. What is the purpose of Vedanta? Removal of misery and establishing oneself firmly in bliss. That is the purpose of Vedanta. Somebody came and said, because the other day I was asking, what is the purpose of all this satsanga? What is the purpose of coming to this satsanga? And this person came later as I was leaving. I said, I don't know the purpose, but I know the result. I said, what? More confusion. I said, there are two variables here. One, either I must not have spoken properly, or you must not have heard it properly, or both, for the reason of confusion. But Vedanta in itself as it is, it cannot lead to confusion. It removes confusion. So he says, to get out of this Bhavarnava or Bhavatavi that he calls, there are certain strict measures that he instructs, I think in the 19th, 20 shlokas. He says, first thing, stop arguing whether in the worldly things or in the Shastrartha. Because the moment you argue, you have lost the opportunity to understand, you have lost the opportunity to grasp what is. There is nothing wrong in discussing, there is nothing wrong in debating. The moment you get down to arguments, arguments are called jalpa. Recently I had gone to one place, I think in Atlanta. Poor girl, one girl's name was Jalpa. I said, why did you keep her name Jalpa? I said, because it was sounding good. I don't know what has happened to these new generation parents. They are in search of some brand new names. भयानक नाम दे देते हैं. Jalpa, and there was one more boy. Timir. Timir means andhakara, dense darkness, ignorance. There's somebody who named Ravi Kumar. Still, is there any Ravi Kumar here? Don't name anybody Ravi Kumar because Ravi means Surya. Surya had 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. Ravi Kumara means one of those 2 sons. Who are those sons? Shani, Yama. विचित्र विचित्र नाम देते हैं. Jalpa means argument based on misunderstanding. Ram Ram. It says stop all this Jalpa, the Vivada. The second thing, do not hate anybody. Our people are very good in giving this message, very systematic. Thou shalt love thy neighbor. Before that, thou shalt hate not thy neighbor. Or else it will be just pretension, hypocritical. You may not love the other person, but at least don't hate. There's a difference. Now the third thing is, love everybody. And the fourth thing, very important, be loving, but do not get attached to anybody, anything, any place, at any time. The moment you know that you are getting attached, nip it at the bud, kick it out of your heart. Love gets corrupted in the name of attachment. That which is corrupted always gets stagnating, stinking. In love, there is no attachment. That is the fourth thing. Now the fifth thing is with that kind of a mental environment, worship Lord always. Hari sevaya shitam jnanasimadaya. He says, enrich the sword of discriminative knowledge with this constant worship of the Lord, constant chintan of the Lord. Your head should be always in the contemplation of the tattva, and the heart should always be tuned towards the Lord. When both of them are busy, how can confusions come? When both of them are busy in that tattva chintana, how can any worldliness come inside? Now Raja Rahugana says, "O Maharaj, I am so blessed. I am so blessed that I have this human life." Probably Jadabharata wanted to stop him there. He said, no, I don't mean to say that this human life is something real again. What I mean to say is this human life is blessed because if I was some Jantu, even though you would have spoken, I would not have understood a word of it. Now look at the other side of the meaning of it. If you have understood the meaning that it is indicating you are a Manushya. If you have not understood it, you have missed it, you are a Jantu. What a hidden message there. That I got this satsanga. Kritatmanam mahatmanam vah prachuruhu samagamaha. It is only with the blessings of the Lord and the punya paripaka that a satsanga with a Mahatma can happen. And I am blessed that I have your satsanga today. So that all my doubts are cleared, and now I shall focus on establishing myself in that true nature that you have indicated. And I promise you that I will never ever go again into this dustarka. This is what even Adi Shankaracharya ji instructs in his Sadhana Panchakam. He says, Dustarkat suviramyatam The moment you know that there is this situation which is leading to an unnecessary argument, पतली गली से भाग जाओ, दुम दबा के भाग जाओ. Run from that place. We had this. He was also a sadhu, but not very well educated or anything. He used to work in this particular ashram to bring in food, serve food. He was a very young boy, 15, 16-year-old. I'm talking when I had gone to the ashram. Probably I was also of that same age. So he used to bring food and serve food, bring chai and do this. The moment anybody would get to his argument or get to pull him down to any argument, he had one knack. Mahatma ji abhi aate hain, jaldi jana hai, and he would run. He would say, I have to go to the restroom, I have to use the toilet. I had observed this 2-3 times. I caught him and I said, सच्ची में जाते हो? नहीं जाता तो मैं झूठ, and like if I don't go, then it becomes a lie. So I do go. Because it was in a very orthodox ashram setup. I do go, I do take a shower later. But that gives me a good opportunity to get out of the argument. His own little method to not fall into any arguments. And the best method to walk out of an argument, agree. Whatever is the other person saying, okay, you're right. Not like, okay, you're right. There's a difference. You're starting an argument there. The attitude matters. The moment you observe that there is going to be an argument, मैं क्षमा चाहता हूं, मैं चलता हूं, you are right. I agree. It is the best offensive method to disagree and get out. Is to agree immediately. ठीक है, चलो निकलो बाहर. And he says, since I have met you in this Jada Bharata form, I don't know what kind of masters are there in which form. They might be like a child, like a mad fellow, they can be in a stree form, they can be in a tree form, they can be in a stone form. To whoever it is, in whichever form. He says, Namo Mahadbhyo Astu Namaha Shishubhyaha. From the small infant stage to any other form that can be taken, to such a master, I bow down. What a transformation in Rahugana also. In the end of this particular 13th chapter, Shukadev ji says, Hey Parikshita, Uttaranandana, Jada Bharata, after having given this message to Rahugana, Rahugana prostrates, and Jada Bharata did not want to be recognized anymore in that particular area. Absconded. He just went into the world, not being recognized by anybody. And what is the satsanga phala? He says, the satsanga result here was that which is the result of the ignorance, which is the assumption that this body, mind and intellect is me, dehatma buddhi, giving that up and focusing the mind and intellect on that tattva chintana is the result of satsanga. Meaning a direct vairagya, dispassion born out of clarity is the result of satsanga. Now Parikshit said, Rahugana was instructed all these weird things about the Bhavatavi. What do they mean? Can you just explain it to us? Shukadev ji said, sure. In the 14th chapter, he says, I will explain it to you tomorrow at 7:30. Because I just recognized it was 9 o'clock. So we'll meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate
पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय